नित्यानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि. Right. Here we are. Welcome to The Curious Mind, a podcast that delves into the profound depths of human experience, seeking wisdom, knowledge, and spiritual enlightenment. In today's episode, we embark on an enlightening exploration of the synergy between science and spirituality with the insightful Nitish Mital, a devoted disciple of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Sri Nityananda Paramashivam, since 2017. So join us today as we unravel the interconnectedness of these two seemingly different realms and discover how they converge to shape our understanding of the universe and our place within it. Get ready to expand your mind and open your heart as we journey into the fascinating intersection of science, spirituality, and the insights shared by Nitish Mittal. So I'd like to take this opportunity to invite and welcome Nitish Mittal to the podcast. Welcome, Nitish. How are you doing today?
Thank you, ma'am. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Great. I'm going to cut right to the chase and go to the questions.
hmm
So I know, since I know you, you have, a pretty scientific approach to things. So what has impressed you most about science?
I think in science, uh, there is the um, exploratory attitude of not taking someone's word just like that, but to actually go and look at it, to explore it, to understand it for yourself, if it makes sense to you. So it's a very empirical um, uh, method of inquiry. It teaches me how to inquire into a question if I have.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I feel that with science, there is no frills, there is no ambiguity. It's very much about let's look at what we have and work with
Mhm.
that. It's fact based to a large extent and proving theories, and it needs to be watertight. So, it's the way I look at science is it's without any frills, or there is no, it's not, it's there doesn't have ambiguity. It
Mm.
tends to remove the ambiguity, works to
Yeah.
remove the ambiguity and get to like, okay, this is how it is, right?
Yes.
There's like a proving thing going on. Okay, I get it.
This,
uh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, the word there is rigor.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, now what has impressed you most about spirituality?
So spirituality has helped me explore the inner world. So it gives me the method of inquiry into my inner world, how to understand my own myself, uh, how my mind is working, how I'm making decisions in my life. So um, the it is spirituality kind of has made me bring out my creative side, my intuitive side.
Right.
So that is the best thing that has impressed me.
Right. And see, I feel from my experience that especially when it comes to the Vedic civilization, the Sanatana Hindu Dharma, I feel that it has the same scientific approach,
Mm,
but on the intangible aspects of us life and
mm,
generally the beingness. So with science, it's there is an exploratory angle. I feel that, but they tend to focus on outside, what can be
mm,
seen. And with spirituality, it's also the seen and the unseen, because
mm,
that is also taken into account. Okay, so that's interesting. Now, how do you perceive the relationship between science and spirituality?
mhm.
And can these seemingly different realms complement each other? Is it possible?
Yes, good question, ma'am. So I believe to a very large extent they address different aspects of our existence.
Mm-hmm.
So science is a method of inquiry which deals with the objective truth, like the mechanisms in the world.
Right.
Spirituality, it addresses the inner world where, like us, how, what is the underlying reality. They complement each other, so they do address the purpose of both of them is to understand the fundamental nature of reality.
Right.
So the word physics itself
Hmm.
has derived from a word which means to understand the to understand the fundamental nature of reality, the underlying, which cannot be seen, maybe.
Right.
So I do believe they can, complement each other in both of these things, but they approach this question from different angles. So,
Right.
mm,
Yeah. Yes. And in what ways do you see the integration of ancient spiritual wisdom
mm,
with modern scientific advancements
mm,
contributing to a more holistic understanding of life and existence? So,
mm,
see, we mentioned about how they're different
mm,
and they approach the topics from different angles,
mm,
right? Now, when they integrate,
mm.
can they bring a more holistic understanding of life and existence, do you think?
I do believe so. So the okay, let's get down deep into it.
Okay.
So the so Hinduism,
Hmm.
the ancient spiritual wisdom, in the Vedas, the if I just summarize it in a very short, brief way, it is that everything that we see,
Hmm.
it may not be the actual reality. There is an underlying reality from which things are manifesting out, which is taking form as we see it, right? From our senses and everything. Science has eventually, from the earlier, like from the beginning of science, when Galileo and so all of the initial scientists, they were looking into the nature of reality. They were considering a very gross understanding of reality, where atoms were like particles,
Hmm.
hard particles. But eventually, now, over time, we have quantum physics and
Right.
all, which brings us to the understanding that, okay, the reality is not is quite weird. It's not very straightforward. There
Hmm.
is, in quantum physics, for example,
Right.
there is this idea of the wave function,
Hmm.
which is a mathematical concept. It's a mathematical object,
Right.
which is uh, to analyze, we assume that, okay, this wave function,
Right.
when we observe something,
Hmm.
there is a wave function, and it collapses into one um, thing that we see. The
Right.
wave function can allow, it describes the probability of an event to be a certain, to have different outcomes.
Right.
And then when we observe it,
Right.
we observe one outcome
Correct.
from that probability.
Hmm.
Right. So there is an underlying reality wave function which we cannot see objectively,
Hmm.
but it manifests itself in what we see in reality.
Right.
Right. So this is how science is kind of moving towards
Hmm.
the ancient spiritual wisdom. The second point, just let me, sorry for going on here,
No,
but
no, you can. Please go ahead. That's fine. We have the time. Yeah.
um, so even the scientific community has recently become very, very interested in uh, the the question of what is consciousness.
Right.
So they call it the hard problem of consciousness, which means, so they say, the scientific community assumes that that, okay, all of the experiences that we have,
Hmm.
the seeing a red color, or the feeling of hot or cold,
Mm-hmm.
or anything, it is essentially some chemical processes happening in the brain. That's what they think. That's
Right.
what they hypothesize. They have no proof for it,
Mm-hmm.
but that's they are exploring that.
Mm-hmm.
But all that is fine. But then they still ask the question: what is it that gives me the experience of red? I see an image. When I think I see an image forming in my mind,
Right.
what is that, the quality of red, what is giving me that experience of the quality of red, that color?
Right.
That is the hard problem of consciousness, and they are really into it. There's a huge amount of research going into it,
Yeah.
and yeah. uh,
No,
so
I
this
got
is.
it. I mean, with I've been fascinated with quantum physics. To say I've probably touched on the topic a long time ago. I would say that I probably a few years ago now. This watched a few videos on quantum physics. I understand what you mentioned when you're talking about the wave
Mm,
theory. Is it? Would you call it a theory? The wave theory, and also this thing of where all realities are happening at the same time, but because we have focused on one, as you say, the others have collapsed. But the
mm,
possibilities are endless. So
mm,
in any given situation, an endless amount of possibilities are there for that, but for an outcome,
mm,
right? But we tend to, for because of our previous conditioning, etc., we tend to collapse on one automatically.
mm.
That's there. And then the is it the split, what is it called, the split
Young's double slit
double
experiment.
split experiment, exactly, that's what it's
Mm,
called. So that I've fascinating that when there's an observer,
mm,
the actual nature of how everything reacts or behaves changes.
mm,
It's interesting. So these experiments are there. Now, while you were sharing, what came to mind was actually the Vedic rishis
mm,
had this approach to inquiry into a topic. They may not have had, I'm thinking in terms of how astrology developed in the in Vedic culture or Vedic civilization, how many things, like they were able to know about the distances of planets, sun, earth, all of these things, shape of the earth, without the tools that the science is looking to have now. And
mm,
the Vedic rishis already had that. So I feel
mm,
that there is already a holistic, there is a way, a much more holistic understanding of life and existence already there.
mm,
But for some reason, we tend to think, well, that, we minimize it or not understand it, or haven't spent the time to maybe look into how they did it. So even surgery, example,
mm,
Shushruta, the way he wrote the scriptures for the kind of surgery. Now
mm,
Western medicine has just about caught up with that, and this was done thousands of years ago. So
mm.
it feels, when I was listening to you and I was thinking, well, we already seem to have a holistic understanding of life and existence, but from a scientific perspective, it isn't just arbitrary, it's proven,
Mm.
right? It's proven. So it seems like we already have it. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but I guess it remains, for me at least, this thing of, well, why aren't we? Do we have to always think that when we have, it's like, seems like reinventing the wheel to a certain extent? Could we not take what's already existing and
Yes,
build on that?
yes, I do agree. So there has been, there is a resistance in the scientific community, and to uh, go into to legitimize the some of the religious and spiritual concepts in some communities. I mean, there have been the greatest thinkers like Erwin Schrödinger and Albert Einstein have explored spiritual concepts. Erwin Schrödinger, in his book What is Life,
Mm,
has explicitly talked about the Vedas and the Upanishads.
right.
And he's mentioned that, he also comes to the conclusion that we are divine, we are God, with the
Wow.
consciousness, right, is, God, and the individual consciousness is the same, is equal to the universal cosmic consciousness. Um, so there has been interest from the greatest scientific thinkers,
Right.
uh, but on the whole, the majority of the scientific community has a resistance because of a history of dogmatic religions,
Right.
which did not really encourage a spirit of inquiry.
Hmm.
But the difference in the Sanatana Dharma is that it does encourage the you know pure inquiry,
Hmm.
seeking into what is the nature of reality, right? So we once that resistance
Hmm.
goes away, I think the scientific community will be more um, welcoming to the spiritual concepts.
Okay. Got it.
And if I just kind of say another aspect of it
Hmm.
is that there is um, the difference where the science and spirituality right now are having is that even with the all the exploration in the scientific community about consciousness, they are still considering they are still considering consciousness or the other processes as a mechanism.
Hmm.
They are not looking, they are not recognizing the presence of a will, a free will, that is consciousness. What they describe consciousness is just the experience, the senses. But as we
Ah.
understand in the spiritual community, is that the senses and the experience itself of colors and sounds and all is not consciousness. Consciousness is the witness of all of these, right?
Right.
So that's
Interesting.
where the difference is happening.
And I see that I had some questions for you, but you've already answered some of them. Could you share your insights on the parallels between the concepts of consciousness and spirituality,
Mm.
as you said, and the principles of quantum physics
Mm.
and how they might intersect? So I feel that with quantum physics, it goes closer.
Mm.
Um, and to be fair, I haven't delved into every single science approach, so I
Mm.
can't really say that, but my favorite happens to be quantum physics because I don't know, I'm able to see the fluidity in their approach to
Mm.
inquiry. So
Mm.
I it tend to be my, more favored. If there was a quantum physics experiment that was,
Mm.
if there was a report or there was an article, I'm more likely to read that
Mm.
than any other scientific report. So
Mm.
yeah, could you share your insights on the parallels between concepts of consciousness? You've touched upon it a little bit, but if you could
Yeah.
delve in it, yeah, yes.
Yeah, I would love to. So, quantum physics, I think the best thing that it does is bring us to terms with the weirdness of reality. That okay, reality is not always just that straight cause and effect always. There is a certain non-locality to processes, to events, to various things happening. There are weird phenomena like quantum entanglement that happen between very distant particles. So it kind of gives us a glimpse of an underlying reality of the universe which we are not aware of even now. Fundamentally, the technique itself of quantum physics is a very mathematical technique, and it
Mm,
gives very precise predictions of any experiment. A person can predict exactly, okay, on a statistical level, that okay, if I do many experiments, what will be the percentage of the times that the particle will be observed here or it will be observed there, right? Um, so I think that's where it kind of starts aligning with consciousness, the ideas of consciousness, and also the um, idea in quantum physics that consciousness can affect a process. So when I observe something,
Hmm.
it affects it. However, a lot of scientific community is skeptical about that interpretation because it need not be a conscious observer always. It may just, the conscious observer that they are saying may just be a measuring instrument.
Uh,
So there is still some way to go from quantum physics to consciousness. The scientific community is missing that mark
hmm.
of consciousness, the free will aspect of it, which I think would be very nice for them to come. And that's when actually, they will start becoming parallel, and it will add a lot to both communities.
Do you know when you were sharing this, like yesterday we were discussing on the 11 dimensions,
Mm,
right? Length, breadth, depth, time, space. And I don't know why, but it feels like with science, it gets to the length dimension and the
mhm,
breadth, but it is not able to cognize consciousness. So that's why this it feels like that to me, that perhaps the approach is very much from 1D or 2D. With
mm,
quantum physics, I feel it gets to 2D, but with science, maybe it is only from a logical level. So it's one dimensional, but the attempt from logic to cognize consciousness is the tricky part.
mm,
So logic has to break open
mm,
for us to be able to start cognizing everything around us.
mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because only then, once the depth dimension, the
Mm,
depth is missing,
mm,
perhaps from quantum physics and from science itself in general, because it's length and breadth only 2D approach to the topic. Whereas with Vedic learning, it
mm.
is all dimensions. The
Yeah.
work is towards experiencing all dimensions, not,
Mm,
on any topic, not just, it can be
mm,
love, it can be death, it can be your emotions, it can be the body.
mm,
Example, Swamiji, we are taught that we have this physical body.
mm,
The emotions is something separate to handle, but that's not taught. We are not taught the mechanisms of the emotions in school.
mm,
I'm taught about the body in biology, but I am
mm,
not taught about the emotions or the mental aspects of
mm,
it in school, right? So that's completely that in your own time, if you have a problem, you can deal
mm,
with it. But with Swamiji, with the Supreme Point of Hinduism, we've learned the first time I was like the seven bodies.
mm,
So there is depth,
mhm,
right? With a topic on body example, it's not one, you have seven body layers, and then it
mm,
all fits, and I'm like, okay, my information about this is missing, this is where my problem is. So sometimes we may have a problem with our emotions, but we only know about the body, so we go and eat.
mm,
Does that make sense? So I'm just wondering, I'm just giving this example, but I'm just wondering, maybe as you're speaking, that
mm,
with science and spirituality, this is what if we'll bring the 11 dimensions into it about a topic, then
mm,
length, breadth, depth, time, space,
mm,
perhaps what is missing is the work towards developing depth. The intention is there to develop the depth, but
mm.
it is from the limitedness of working only 1D and 2D. Just a thought.
I think you're hitting a lot of correct, a lot of the right marks there. Huh?
Okay.
Um, and yes, so science is missing, you know, all the dimensions. So there is not, they are not able to go to all that there. So my idea is that actually it may even be going up till quantum physics may even be going up till the depth, which or the so the wave function that I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
it may roughly correspond to the causal body where, or the depth where the samskaras and the cognitions are residing. So the samskaras and cognitions, they are kind of mechanism, they are patterns which are there, right? The will hasn't still come, which is there, the space, the will in the space is still missing. So the the scientific concepts, they may be going up till depth and even a very diluted concept of time. When Swamiji explains to us kala
Mm-hmm.
or time, it is much more uh, deep. It's much deeper uh, than the standard concept of time.
Right.
However, even science, science has come to these ideas of that time may be running in different at different speeds depending on where you are. If you're in high gravity or if you're moving at very high speeds, the time slows down.
Mm.
So there is exploration from science up till the four dimensions, unit dimensions, but the space, the pure will with which actually anything can be, there is this, I can affect, um, influence events at any moment with my will, you know,
Right.
uh, irrespective of what happened before or what is to happen, I can
Right.
influence it right in this moment. And I think because this space element, if they recognize that, they would have to admit the existence of God. That so that's where the resistance is coming from.
Right. Yeah, because it may be the case of I want to prove something in the space dimension, but from the playground of the length dimension. Like I'm not leaving this length dimension in order to get to the space dimension. Does that
Mm,
make sense? So it's like I'll
yeah.
stay in this parameters here,
Mm,
and from this parameter here is what, but then that doesn't happen because you have to leave the logic dimension to
mm,
even experience the space dimension, right? So I maybe that is where the, now of course Swamiji has um there are many scientific papers that Swamiji has asked us to look at and
mm,
map back the satsangs that he's giving so that we can have a deeper understanding of the spiritual concepts that he's giving us by understanding, like about the black holes example. He's
mm,
the Big Bang and black hole theory. He tends to, well, not, it's not just a theory, but it's the truths about them. He has asked us to read science papers, science articles, so that we can gain a deeper understanding, or the unambiguous aspects of spirituality become more certain for us when we look at the science papers. It's like,
mm,
well, actually they are proving many things, or they're heading towards proving many things which are mentioned in the spiritual truths that Swamiji is sharing with us. So
mm.
yeah, that's quite interesting. It's just, I mean, that spontaneously came up for me, or the 11 dimension. I'm thinking, is that how they are? Maybe that's where the limitations are. How do
Yeah.
you address skepticism then and misconceptions surrounding this intersection of science and spirituality, or and what steps can be taken maybe to foster a more open dialogue
Mm,
between these domains? So imagine Swamiji being able to speak to the top scientists and
mm,
guide some of these experiments, or have an open dialogue about what the truths that are, how Swamiji downloads Akashic readings, example, right?
mm,
So that is surpassing time, or even how the materialization happens, that
mm,
like these kind of, because you have a being who's able to access these
mm,
truths not just in theory but in practice.
mm,
Imagine Swamiji having a dialogue with the top scientists,
mm.
So, but how would you address the skepticism and the misconceptions that are surrounding these intersections, though, and perhaps some steps that can be taken to open more dialogue?
That's a very, very fundamental question, which, yeah, which needs to be answered and understood by everyone. I think in terms of you know, so to understand uh, the scientific community, so the fundamental scientific method is that you observe something. Let's say they observe a phenomena, us doing third eye reading or materializing something, right? So they observe something.
Mm,
Now they form a hypothesis of it
mhm,
that tends to explain that phenomena, right? So that also we have.
mm,
Now, can we, using that hypothesis, can we predict something which has not yet been observed?
mm,
So we predict that and then make a measurement to verify whether that thing, whether the prediction is true,
mm,
right? So this whole thing,
mm.
uh, any new proposition in science of a theory or of an understanding of reality has to go through these for them to be accepted in the wider scientific community,
Right.
right? Um, I guess we could, in the spiritual community, uh, devise such experiments, which actually the spiritual community has been doing.
Mhm,
So um, in the Sangha, we have kind of devised the third eye reading experiments, and with very well designed equipment, and to set control experiments, and to set the to do all those things, to set the control group and the experimental group. um, the more we bring rigor, the less the resistance from the scientific community will be,
right.
uh, and we'll be able to have a dialogue. On the side of the scientific community, they have to bring down their resistance, to
Mm,
let go of the resistance to that, the idea that yes, a god exists.
mm,
There is uh, there is a us, there is a consciousness which is there. You can experience it 24/7.
right.
So I think these barriers which are there, of resistance on one side and the rigor on the other side, actually, when they align, I think we'll be able to have a lot of better dialogue between the two.
Right. And
Mm,
the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is very open to scientific experimentation, or so there are tests done on how his brain functions, during a healing time, when his brain is at rest or when he's resting at different modes. There's so many experimentations done, even during the materialization. He's very much open to this, and he said, he's happy to sit with scientists, even to have a dialogue. And I mean, hopefully in the future they will, this whole thing will open up with genuine
mm,
scientists interested in learning more, and perhaps having quicker answers, because it's
mm,
possible that years of work could be saved just because they've got one or two of the right knowledge about one or two things. Like for
mm,
me, for example, knowing that there's 7 body layers, there's 11 dimensions, changes how I interact with life, myself, others around me, right? Because I
mm,
have that information. So I save myself a lot of conflict, a
mm,
lot of miscommunication, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. So then there's a constant, the resistance drops when the right knowledge is there. So the friction is less,
mm.
is what I think. So anyway, in what ways do you believe that spiritual teachings, like particularly those by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagwan Sri Nityananda Paramashivam, can influence and enrich scientific inquiry and exploration?
Um, I think in that area, the explanation by Swamiji of the 11 dimensions and the um, the 25 states of consciousness. Uh, I think they are very, very. They can answer a lot of the questions which the scientific community has. Because right now they can't seem to get from where they are to consciousness, pure consciousness. But the 11 dimensions gives them the stepping ladders in the middle, with the gap, it fills in the gap from there to the consciousness, pure consciousness, and God.
Hmm.
So I think that knowledge is very, very useful for the scientific community.
Yeah, and you know what you just mentioned? I was thinking even in terms of, because the scientists are quite interested in the black hole,
Mm,
in what happens in the cosmos in general. Like, so when they look at cosmos, they think outside, they think planets, they think the galaxy, etc. So there's a lot of inquiry into. There's a lot of time spent into that. I feel
mm,
science is not just about that, but one subject is that. And
mm,
just what came to me just now was that actually the macrocosm, microcosm, if you look at it, and even if you look at it from, okay, science, and we look at planets, etc., then the functions in me of creation, sustenance, rejuvenation, purinara delusion, and liberation are happening also in the galaxies outside, which the
mm,
scientists can see. So it becomes a microcosm, macrocosm. So what's happening at a small cellular level in my body, which I'm not aware of at this moment in time, but it is happening. All these five faces of Paramashiva, as Swamiji has mentioned, are happening. It's also happening in the bigger outer planetary world, which I say cosmos, but really cosmos is much more than that.
mm,
But for us to be able to see the unseen, if you look up, that's a sure way to connect with the unseen, right? So that's why I'm saying that even that, yeah, the five faces and the
mm,
phases of Paramashiva that Swamiji's mentioned, the microcosmic, because science goes into the microcosm cellular level, to the macrocosm, which if they're looking, if you think of it as just the planets and the galaxy, and all of that around us, then both they can see that what Swamiji is
mm,
sharing is how this and that are connected, and what's happening here is also happening over there. To
mm.
understand this, we can also understand that, right?
Perfectly put. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And I mean, this the microcosm and macrocosm, this understanding that they are the same. The macrocosm is a projection of the microcosm inside us. That gives, once scientists start seeing that, they'll understand that the knowledge of the whole macrocosm, which they are so interested in exploring,
Right.
lies inside our consciousness. The whole knowledge is there.
Right.
It is ready to be accessed anytime.
Mm.
Swamiji gives us, the practices, the way to achieve that. I
Mm.
mean, who hasn't heard of Srinivas Ramanujan?
Right.
He has completely transformed the 20th and 21st century mathematics. And a lot of the mathematics that he developed has been used in quantum physics, string theory, in a lot of the, you know, the esoteric physics,
Mm.
theoretical physics, which has been developed. So in his own words, he described all that knowledge to be coming to him, to be given to him by goddess Saraswati.
Mm.
So what does that mean? That yes, there is a dimension of us which has all that knowledge, and it is readily accessible to us.
Yeah. Interesting. Yes. Now, could you share a personal anecdote, maybe, or transformative experience that perhaps illustrates the profound connection between science and spirituality in your own life and work?
um Personally, I whenever at work, I
Mm.
have to, you know, I'm kind of struggling with some concept or trying to come up with an idea. Um, I actually employ the technique of just unclutching.
Right.
Unclutching allows my intuition to take over, and then I can actually. There have been so many times that I have come up with a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, that I know that okay, it should be like this.
Mm.
This is the way. This is the thing that I want to, get to.
Mm.
Now the only path, so once I have that
Mm.
intuition, it breaks that barrier, and then I know where to go, what to do to prove that or
Mm.
to go into. So, for example, during my PhD, I
Mm.
was trying to solve this problem of, you know, so I've been working with error correcting codes and in information theory, and I was trying to solve this mathematical puzzle at a point where, you know, yeah, I don't want to go too deep into it, but
Right.
yeah, the just relaxing and unclutching
Right.
allowed me to, you know, come up with the thing that, okay, I think this mathematical thing should, uh, you know, I feel my intuition says that the answer should be this.
Right.
Now I just have to prove it.
Ah,
And
wonderful.
it came out to be true. I could prove it.
Wow. Awesome.
So, mhm.
Now that actually brings us to our rapid fire questions. Are you ready for them?
Yep.
Okay. So, your favorite scientific concept that aligns with your spiritual beliefs?
Seeing the multi-dimensional universe and the multiverse.
Wonderful. In one word, describe the bridge between science and spirituality for you.
Free will.
Favorite spiritual practice that resonates with your understanding of scientific principles?
The 25 head meditation.
Wonderful. Quick. Now you have to be quick. The first book or article on the convergence of science and spirituality that you would recommend?
The Scientific American articles on consciousness.
Most surprising way science has affirmed or challenged your spiritual beliefs?
Hmm. Um, the Okay, so the 11 dimensions proposed by string theory, um, they align very well with what Swamiji has taught us
Wonderful. Now, are religion and science compatible?
to some extent. Yes.
Wonderful. Nitish, you have been an awesome guest. I want to thank you so much for this. I wish we had more time actually to keep discussing because there are many more questions for me that have come. Perhaps there will be a part two to this. Who knows? But I really want to thank you for being a wonderful guest on this podcast today. Is there anything finally you want to say before we wrap up?
I think that's all. Yeah. Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure discussing all these things with you. Yeah.
Yes, wonderful. And for our viewers and listeners, I would say that actually what Nitish has mentioned about unclutching 25 heads, 11 dimensions, where we've discussed these different concepts, they are available in various programs for free, like Paramashivam Level 1, Level 2, Level 3 are freely available. Usually they're priced at a certain amount, up to $21,000, but they're free for you. So you can go and explore them experientially if you wish to. We will have the links for all of these programs in the description. And if you have comments, you have questions, please leave those as well for us. I want to thank you for being part of our journey on the Curious Mind, where we've delved deep into the intriguing intersection of science and spirituality with this, with the insightful Nitish. Nitish Mittal with us. We hope this episode has left you feeling inspired and ready to explore the harmonious blend of scientific inquiry and spiritual understanding in your own quest for knowledge and enlightenment. So keep that curiosity alive, stay open minded, and never stop seeking the profound connections between science and spirituality. Until we meet again, may your path be illuminated with the unity of knowledge and inner space. Let's end today's segment. I'd like to invite you all to join in the Purna mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tatsat Sarvam Bhagatesh Nityananda Paramashiva Padukar Panamastu Om Nityanandam. Thank you.
Thank you.